is true. Everything is possible. There's nothing we can't do. It's a wild and beautiful fire, and I believe in you. I believe in you.
Shawn Mendes doing Believe right here on Dan Radio Style. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. Belief in this process, or at least it's going to be called something along those lines. Not 100% sure what it's going to be called, but essentially what I want to do is kind of try to break belief down into a couple different examples. I basically likened it to like martial arts where you have the belt system, right? So I'm going to use white belt, orange belt, blue belt, black belt. Now, there's past the black belt, and there's certainly variances in between these, but this is really kind of meant to help, one, give examples, maybe if you're trying to get to the next level, two, help you understand maybe where you're at and some of the common questions that can come from those locations. So hopefully, again, this just kind of talks a little sense around the concept of belief. Now, the important part about belief, frankly, is, as I've said before, what you think, what you say, what you do is what you create, but what you believe is what shapes your manifestation. So if for some reason you're having a hard time actually creating something, sometimes it's a belief issue, or sometimes maybe we don't trust that this law of attraction thing is working for us. And I will say the one thing I probably hear the most of, and it's really, to me, it's the undertone in the question. It's the fact that the question's being asked at all. And a lot of people just like, well, I'm just looking for another technique, another example, another way I can do this. Here's another thing that you could do that also works. Here's another thing you can do that also works. Here's another thing you can do that also works. And I think it's wonderful that there's all these different techniques. And as I've told people many, many, many times, all these different techniques, first off, there's a lot of people writing books about this and doing stuff like that. So yeah, of course, everyone's coming up with their technique. They want to create their book and sell their book, right? If it works for you, do it, for sure, without a doubt. But I think that's part of one of the issues is a lot of times we look for different techniques, and here's where I think the issue is. We look for different techniques because we don't think what we're doing is working, and generally speaking, that is because we look at what we have right now and go, well, I still have not manifested what I'm trying to manifest, so I must be doing something wrong. To me, that's belief. That's a belief issue. Through and through. It's going to take time no matter what. Nothing manifests instantly. It just really doesn't. It's not going to. It doesn't. So it's going to take time. That's part of this process. It's not just a process of creating a manifestation in your life. It's also this evolution around, why am I having these negative thoughts? Why do I have this kind of darker sort of outlook on things? Why am I keep snapping on people? Why am I so grumpy? Why, right? There's more to it. And that's why we so frequently say, work on yourself, because it is. That's the area where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, is by kind of ironing out the wrinkles in our own psyche, if you will. And by doing that, we a lot of times can make the biggest differences in our manifestation. So how do I liken this belief stuff? Again, a lot of us are in different varying stages of this whole process, right? And there's nothing right or wrong about any of this. For any of us that have been doing this for a long time, we remember, usually anyways, when we first started, or at least early on. We remember some of the craziness that went along with it, some of the excitement, some of those first times where you really started seeing magic in your life, and you're like, oh my God, it was so amazing. And then it just to see how it grew more and more and more. So these are kind of that variance in between. So the standard approach, I think, for a white belt, really, the way it kind of works out is you know nothing about law of attraction. You know nothing about our thoughts, words, and deeds creating our outlook. Like there is no belief or understanding of that concept when you're kind of coming at it from the white belt. So very early on, right off the bat, it's like, hey, there's this thing called law of attraction. Oh my God, strap on your white belt. Here we go. You're beginning the process of mastery. So again, you're at that early on phase, you're kind of getting excited up to it. And we kind of, there's supposedly a yellow belt in between. I'm skipping belts intentionally because I don't need it to be that granular. We're not trying to reproduce the rainbow here, if you will, and every, red, orange, green, yellow, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. There we go. Roy G. Biv. That's how I always remember. So again, we're not trying to create all of it, trying to just spread it out a little bit and help people kind of see the correlation. So when we go from white belt, don't know what any of this stuff is, to starting to play with it, but still having a very limited amount of belief. Remember, this is belief that I'm kind of really focusing this towards. So in the orange belt phase, you're going to be kind of at that place where you're doing your, parking spaces, traffic signals, maybe trying to manifest certain birds that show up every day, or maybe you're trying to manifest the deer that comes up to the house or the cow that comes up to the fence. So I was relating to a comment, Sista out there. I think you know who I'm talking about. And so, that whole concept, or, again, it could be the beach ball. One thing I've liked talking about, because a beach ball isn't something that you just see all over the place unless you work at a resort or you work as a lifeguard at a swimming pool. Yeah, then maybe a beach ball is probably not a good sign for you or a good thing to try to manifest. But you start with something that's small, innocuous, something that doesn't matter, that makes no difference. It's not going to change your life in any way, shape, or form. And you will imagine yourself having it. In the case of the beach ball, it's one of my favorite ones, and it was really one of my first ones, and that's why I like to bring it up. It was really, I was looking for something just random that, like, I could see, that I was believable, but at the same time, something I didn't see with any sort of regularity that I could imagine, but, right? So, beach ball, I imagined it in my hands, I imagined the smell of it, I imagined the color of it, I imagined seeing it. And probably more the first time, it was more imagining seeing it more so than just like the smelling of it and whatnot. But again, I was pulling out of my neighborhood where I was living. I was living with my folks at the time, and driving down the street, and right in the gutter, beach ball, right on the, just kind of flattened out somewhat, but right in the gutter. And it was my beach ball. And I saw it, I don't know, within a day. It was pretty quick. So that's your orange belt phase, where you're starting to play around with it. You're starting to create these little mini manifestations. You made a green light that's almost always red, but you've managed to make it green 3 times now. Call it coincidence. I don't care what you call it. We're not going to get into semantics, right? It comes down to believing if law of attraction works, or if we're still making excuses or coming up with reasons why, or coincidence. Like, coincidence is a loaded word in that it implies that whatever happened, it has nothing to do with anything, completely random. Well, again, early on, when you're an orange belt, yeah, you might see it that way. You might see it as completely random. But as you move up the chain of mastery, you begin to understand that, no, there's something to this. So when you get to that blue belt level, you really aren't questioning it so much, right? And now it's more beginning to get into the issue of, what can I use this for? What kind of stuff? So you start getting into your real first fundamental life-affecting or life-changing manifestations, things that will impact your life, make a difference, and you'll start to feel like, I've actually got some control over what I'm experiencing. Again, this is the blue belt level of belief. Like, I'm well past the fact that I know it works. I've gotten parking places. I've found money, loose change, whatever. I've had people offer me bottles of water. I've created the beach ball a few times. I've done all that stuff. So now it's more an issue of, all right, how can I make so-and-so and me meet up with each other and communicate? I haven't talked to them in a long time. I'd love to bump into so-and-so. I'm going to manifest seeing them. I imagine seeing them. I imagine talking with them, and I let it go. And I end up bumping into her or him. Or how about maybe a job interview? Or maybe you're looking for some additional tutelage in this law of attraction thing, and you're looking to meet your teacher. So you start imagining meeting somebody that maybe is able to give you a little more one-on-one guidance. Someone that maybe understands it, has been able to demonstrate it, kind of has their feet on the ground and their head in the clouds, right? They've kind of got them both covered. So that's kind of a good time where you might try to use this law of attraction stuff to start to manifest maybe your teacher, right? Or maybe some sort of special experience, a trip, maybe to go to Disneyland for your first time, or Universal Studios, or wherever. I'm just thinking of things that are like Florida and here, obviously, but not that my audience is in those two places only. But again, we got Disneyland and a number of countries. Like, people have at least heard of it, right? So some sort of really, really interesting, fancy castle, maybe, or something crazy, whatever you got in your country or your place of living. Maybe you live in in Arizona, New Mexico, or whatever. You got the Grand Canyon, right? The biggest hole in the earth, maybe. Well, at least one of the prettiest holes in the earth. So you might use it to do something along those lines. And possibly you'll start to use it to get answers to questions. Now, I've done shows on signs, and there's ways that signs can be abused. There's ways signs can be used in the right way. But long story short, one of the ways that I think is kind of more in line with the right way is when you're looking for answers, when you're looking for additional feedback, additional information, additional understanding into what's going on in your life. A lot of times you can look for ways to either get signs. Hey, if I see this, then maybe it's kind of more in line with this concept. And if I see a red bird instead of a blue one, whatever, it's going to be more in line with this issue right over here, right? So whatever the case is, you kind of put it out there, and then it's like, if I see a brown bird, it's something totally different. And then the very next bird you see is blue, right? Or maybe it's purple, really mess with you, right? It's like, that wasn't even one of my choices. Well, then that's probably not the answer. But again, you start to use it to try to hone in your understanding of what's going on, your understanding of your growth. You try to use it to hone in these experiences because, again, you're not really questioning whether it works. Now it's more an issue of how can I use this in my life? Now, once you hit the level of black belt, this is, to me, is the real true beginning of mastery. Now, there's levels past this. But for the most part, if you're hitting black belt, boom, you should be doing your own YouTube channel and helping everyone else out because you've kind of got the skill set. But this is where you realize that every single thing, for the most part, everything that happens to you is based off of you, is completely you, is because of what you think, say, and do, what you believe, what you're experiencing is brought about because of you. There's no doubting that. There's no questioning that. It's an issue of I'm 100% sure of that. Now, it may not be 99 or 100% of the time that I created this exactly because of what, like there's on occasion things that we walk into that we need to experience. It's not necessarily because we're thinking of it, but our soul, our evolution, maybe there's some other thing that needs to happen in this sort of experience, whatever it is going to help bring that about. So there are going to be times where you're going to have things happen in your life that you're like, I didn't create this. Yeah, it's created for you no matter what. And again, that goes back to the black belt thing. No matter what, if it's happening to you, it's for you, it's by you, and it's, higher self supporting it, right? It's like, it's happening for a reason. It's happening to you, so there must be some reason behind it. So let's figure that out, and then we can move forward, and life becomes groovy and great. And I also realize that anytime I try to create anything in my life, I'm using these principles. It's essentially, I'm imagining it, my intention goes out, this is what I'm going to experience, and I don't doubt it. I know I'm going to experience it. Might be a week, might be a month, might be a year. I don't know, but I'm working towards it, and I know I'm going to see things along the way that are going to indicate that, yeah, you're on your way, dude. You're moving in your direction. Doors are already opening. Interviews are being scheduled. Things are starting to happen. Things are lining up. I can see it in front of me. It's happening. I don't question it. It's the same thing if you're going for a specific person. It's the same thing if you're going for a job. It's the same mechanics. It's all the same stuff. I know that people will say, well, they say with relationships, it's a lot trickier because there's X, Y, and Z. And people say making money is a lot trickier than other things because I can do that real easy. It's all the same. If there's any blocks, it's within yourself. It's your beliefs. I've talked about this already. If this is easier than that, well, it's because you've got some sort of belief that this is easier than that. And so long as you keep having that belief, you're going to challenge that. You're going to make that harder to accomplish. Why don't we say that there's really no difference between the two, and any sort of perceived difference that exists is because it's inside my head. So really, that is no different than this, and I can make this happen all day long, so I can definitely make that happen. Boom. Now I'm starting to pass through that holding me back belief thing, whatever it was. Hopefully this kind of makes sense. There's nothing wrong with any of these phases. Again, it's the same as concept with when you're in martial arts. There's nothing wrong with being a white belt. There's nothing wrong with being an orange belt. There's nothing wrong with being a blue belt or a black belt. There's nothing wrong with any of them. They're all phases along the way. They're all steps towards the ultimate evolution of becoming a master. And even once you hit black, there's still degrees of black that you can move through as you progress past mastery. And it's the same with law of attraction. And it's beautiful how it plays out. It really, truly is. Hopefully this makes a difference for everybody, kind of gets you thinking and moving in the right direction. And, wherever you're at in this process is perfect. But at least this maybe gives you a little indication on where you're heading, right? And so if you're still questioning things a lot, that's okay. You're down in that white-orange belt range. That's okay. When you start to do the basics, you get them done over and over, and you're not really questioning it. You're like, yeah, this definitely works. then we start to evolve our thinking through how can I make this work for me? What can I do to help bring about different circumstances in my life? And then, you evolve from there. So again, beautiful stuff. Belief in the process is super powerful when it comes to, well, without a doubt, powerful when it's a handbrake. So if you're yanking up the old brake, this can be the problem sometimes. Sometimes your belief's the issue. Belief is huge. Belief is key. It's like when you're doing like a dough thing, like one of those dough bags, or you like push the dough through a tube and you got little shapes on the end. The belief's the shape, Like if you're making star cookies, it's because you got a star belief, right? That's the little piece you stuck on the thing. It's the star shape, So now when you pop out star-shaped cookies, it's the belief. Hopefully it helps. Going out with a great song by Lady Gaga. This song's called Born This Way. It's right here on Dan Radio Style.
Said 'cause he made you perfect, babe. So hold your head up, girl, and you'll go far.